We are on.
This is an administrative hearing being held on November 18th, 2025 in Marshall County. This hearing is being recorded. This hearing is being conducted pursuant to the laws as stated in IC 6-1.1. We have one appeal number before the board. The appeal number is 50-017-2505-00013 for parcel number 50-3124-000-231-000-017 for the property located at 15440 Menominee Drive in Plymouth. The assessment year under appeal is 2025. Does everyone present agree the year under appeal is as stated?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Phil Olinger. I'm a member of the Marshall County PTABAOA Board. This lady is a board member and she is?
Angie Snyder.
Thank you. Would the lady representing the petitioner please state your name for the record?
Becky Good.
Thank you. Will the gentleman representing the county assessor's office please state your names for the record?
Edward Leary. Peter Paul.
Thank you. Will all persons who may be a witness in this hearing, please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Ms. Good, you may begin if you would tell the board why you filed the appeal and why you believe the assessed value to be in error. And also, if you have brought any documentation with you that you would like the board to consider regarding your appeal, we will happily accept that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are these both the same thing?
Yes.
And has the county assessor's office seen this information?
No. Would you like a copy?
Yes.
Okay.
If you would.
I just have one. You don't mind sharing?
Thank you.
And we will mark this as petitioner's exhibit 1. So go ahead.
Okay, good morning, county assessors and board members, and thank you for your time. I am here to appeal the 2025 assessed value of my property located at 15440 Menominee Drive. The assessors have set the evaluation at $581,400. However, I respectfully contend that the true market value is significantly lower and request a revised assessment of $489,300 or less. On the next page, you can see that the current assessed value is 10% above the purchase price from just 2.5 years ago when I purchased the property. From 2024 to 2025, the assessment increased $92,000, representing a 19% jump in a single year. And the 2-year total increase since I purchased the home is $127,600, or almost 30%, despite no major property improvements. On the next page, you can see that compared to the countywide average increase of 7%, my property's 19% increase in 2025 reflects a valuation nearly 3 times the norm, underscoring a significant disparity. And that document, the gross assessed value comparison, came from the Indiana Capital Chronicle for 2025. On the next page, I've shown some online valuation models, which appear inconsistent across the platforms, which reflect the ongoing market uncertainty. Notably, both Homes.com and Home Valuation estimate my property's value below its purchase price from 2 years ago, directly challenging the assumption that the home has significantly appreciated. Redfin reports a 21% decline in local home sale prices over the past year. My home's 2-year increase of 28% underscores a significant disconnect between market reality and the assessed valuation. And you can see the plot graph on the market decline from Redfin. On the next page, I've additionally identified several material inaccuracies in the assessor's property report that appear to have contributed to an inflated valuation. The property is incorrectly listed as having 5 bedrooms, 3 full baths, and 1 half bath, when in reality it contains 4 bedrooms, 2 full baths, and 2 half baths. And the report inaccurately notes a bathhouse when the property actually has 2 utility sheds in the backyard. Further, my home is misclassified as grade A, while all other homes on Menominee Drive are designated as grade B or C. My property should be similarly classified due to the home having its original windows, a 20-year-old roof, a water heater over 30 years old, visible deterioration of the driveway and sidewalks, among other signs of wear and tear. These discrepancies should be corrected to reflect the property's actual condition and configuration. On the next page, I've shown sort of the inequality for homes on Menominee Drive. My home isn't the newest. It's not the most upgraded on my street. It's been assessed at $130,000 to $284,000 above similar homes on the same street, which is nearly double the assessed value of my neighbors. Even if the valuation were adjusted to the 2024 assessment, which was $489,300, it remains almost $40,000 higher, again calling into question the accuracy and fairness of the recent two-year assessments. On the next page, you can see that my property is also being taxed at a significantly higher rate per square foot than other homes on Menominee Drive, despite not being the largest residence on the street. This inconsistency further highlights a lack of uniformity in valuation practices. On the next page, I previously had contacted the county assessor regarding the comparable properties that were used in my assessment. Notably, several of the listed comps were duplicated, specifically comps 3 and 6, 4 and 9, and 5 and 12, which artificially inflates the average price per square foot. These duplicates must be removed for a fair analysis. And on the slide, I have shown the addresses of those duplications and which comps have been duplicated. On the next slide, I have marked out the 3 duplicated entries, which are in red X's in the slide, which leaves only 6 comparable properties that remain in the assessment analysis. One of these is a brand new build, and it's not comparable to my 1980 home. The remaining 4 comps on the page, marked with a red asterisk, are significantly smaller, skewing the price per square foot. Only homes similar in age, size, and condition should be considered. On the next slide, I'm marking this as comparable 1. And this was in the assessor's report, it was comp 4, and I see it as the most accurate benchmark in the assessor's report. It's located on the same street with an equivalent bed and bath count, a similar lot size, and sold for $479,900 on April 2nd, 2024. However, it was built in 1991 compared to my home, which was built in 1980. It also has a new roof compared to my 20-year-old roof, and it has 2 master suites, which are premium upgrades that justify the higher sale price. Yet, as you can see, the assessed value of this comparable property is $190,000 less than my assessed value. On the next page and subsequent pages, to support a more accurate valuation, I've identified 15 additional comparable properties in Plymouth that better align with my home in terms of square footage, number of bedrooms and baths, age and condition, and recent sale prices. These comps offer a more reliable basis for assessing fair market value than those originally used in the assessor's report. And notably, all assessed values fall far below my home's assessment of $581,400, with most assessments in the $300,000 range. The assessed values range between $256,500 to $466,200, with the low and high values highlighted on the next 5 pages. Like with my neighboring properties, I've been assessed between $115,000 to $325,000 higher than the following 15 comparable properties in Plymouth. And again, comps, this page shows comps 2 through 4. And then on the next 4 pages, I've provided further evidence for comps 5 through 16. I'll let you review those so that we don't sort of belabor the point. But if you want to move now to the conclusion page, if you skip over like 4 pages. In summary, the assessor's records contain incorrect property details and include duplicated and flawed comps. My home is misclassified as grade A despite aging features and lower graded neighboring homes. I've provided 15 updated comps that show significantly lower sale prices and assessments. Valuation models across platforms show inconsistent and uncertain values. Homes.com and Home Valuation both estimated my property below its 2023 purchase price. Redfin reported a 21% drop in local sale prices, which contradicts the upward assessment trend. My home has been assessed $129,000 to $284,000 higher than similar homes on the same street, and $115,000 to $325,000 higher than 15 comparable homes in Plymouth. Even at the 2024 assessed value, which was $489,300, it remains $23,000 to $38,000 above comparable homes. This evidence supports a reassessment to reflect true market value and use. This adjustment would ensure equitable taxation and restore consistency with local valuation norms. Given this context, the current assessed value of $581,400 appears substantially inflated and unsupported by market data, comparable sales, or the property's actual condition. And for these reasons, I respectfully request a reassessment to ensure a fair, equitable, and evidence-based valuation. On the following pages are my references and appendices showing the Appendix A, showing the record and accuracies of how many numbers of bedrooms and baths. And then on Appendix A, showing that the grade A is a misclassification. You can also see pictures of my home in Appendix A. Further on in Appendix B, it shows my home inspection when I purchased the home, and you can see that the yellow and red were immediate repairs that needed to take place. It also shows my water heater being in 2023, being 29 years old. So I'm well over 30 years old at this point. And just issues with my siding and cracking. I know that the assessors had mentioned that my home was painted, but you can see from this report that I needed to. I had large holes in my stucco siding from what they think was either woodpeckers or carpenter bees. I constantly have pest problems. I have Orkin on quarterly spray. I had to call them back 5 times this fall in the same month for yellow jackets that continue to destroy my home and come inside my home. And that was also my issues last fall as well with yellow jackets, where I had a large hive in my eaves and had to have that whole eave taken out and the hive removed. And I fight a lot of pests. I fight especially woodpeckers, carpenter bees, and yellow jackets in my home. And so the repairs on the exterior were a necessity and not really an upgrade per se. They needed to be done. And so with that came the paint, that I did select a different paint color, but that was not really a cosmetic thing, more than a necessity. Any questions?
I have none at this time. Angie,
I don't right now.
thank you very much
Thank you.
for your documentation and your testimony. County.
Yeah, I'll start. I'll ask a few questions. I think when Peter will chime in too. So, you know, I had emailed you and I didn't get anything back from you. So it was my contention you did not want us to come out and take a look at the property. So still something we could do if you wanted that. So around.
Did you want me to answer that, or is that?
That was just something to think about. That was just my contention that you probably didn't want us to.
I didn't think that normally that was the case, that an assessment was done visually without coming into the home. I do work 2 jobs, unfortunately. And so it's really difficult for me to schedule outside appointments. When I received your email, I think the letter had come as well. And so I just moved forward with the appeal.
Okay. Yeah, and I hadn't heard back from you. So after that point, and I try to visit every property, even if people don't want me to come to their property. So I did. I went by and I took a picture. I'm very familiar with the lakes. I'm from that area. I know Menominee Drive very well there. So in 2024, around that same time, so after you purchased your home, we then looked at that area. We look at each area in the county every 4 years as part of our cyclical process. So at that time, when we looked at your home and other homes on that street, we're like, yeah, you know, this one's in a little better condition now. This one might be in a little bit less. We kind of make those changes and analysis, and we do that every 4 years. So at that time we said, okay, we think this house is also in good condition. So that kind of moved the valuation up a little bit more.
Excuse me, I do show you on the slide that shows my home. These are all valuations from my very same street, like
Right.
everybody down my,
Right.
not Menominee Drive on the other side. I know it's kind of,
Yeah, that's a little different too.
that it's, but these are all the homes on my street, and I am not the nicest home to be assessed 100 to 300,000 above my neighbors. I don't have like the cutesy details. I have a neighbor with a metal roof. I have two neighbors
And I'm
with
gonna
brand new
I'm gonna
roofs.
swing around and get to that.
Okay, gotcha.
So as looking at this, average condition is something we could move to if we would say, okay, yeah, maybe it's more an average. So as I was driving and looking and taking a photo of it, I'm going, okay, well, this house looks better now. It looks different. The things that, that are saying here in Appendix B that needed to be remediated as far as the outside look remediated. So that does look better than it did previously look. So that's what we saw in 2024, and that's why we made that judgment. Now, if there are things on the inside that are in average or fair or less than condition, well, that might mean it should be in a lower condition. But a lot of times when we see a different outside, we can kind of guess that they did some things inside as well. We have to make those judgments. So it would be nice if we did have interior photos of what it looks like today on the inside, not from 2023 when you purchased it, so that we could see that those things are the same.
These are the interior photos.
Today.
Like I said, wasn't able to, I had to repair the exterior
Right.
because I have pests damaging and coming in my house. I had squirrels in my house. I forgot to mention that. I've had to do some repairs.
So
to
when
that
are
inside.
these photos from? Is my
These were on Zillow from 2023.
Right. So I'm saying if we saw what it looked like as of
Correct.
January 1st, 2025, we could better make that judgment. Okay, here's what's changed since the purchase.
But I'm curious as to why you would upgrade me from these pictures 2 years ago, just based off of paint on the outside. Like I said, my neighbors have nicer looking homes than myself. And the repairs that I did to the exterior were necessities. And I believe that my neighbors, clearly from the assessment reports that I pulled, the report cards that I pulled, don't reflect that any of them have had increased valuation due to the interior of their home just because their exterior looks better. And like I said, I've had like 4 neighbors actually that have had new roofs, one with a new metal roof. So I don't understand why I'm a grade A and all of my neighbors on my street are grade B and C. And so I think that is obviously raising my valuation, but you can see based on the pictures of my home that I'm not a grade A. I have a very older looking interior.
And I will say that, if we pull it up on Zillow, these are not the highlight pictures I would show to sell this property. They're very standard C grade type photo.
These are the photo. I mean, I'm happy to pull up Zillow. There is really nothing remarkable.
Yeah, and we can do that later. So, and one more question I have, then I'll let Pete talk. So your contention is that the property we would sell today for $490, so for less than you purchased it?
I can tell you, I have 2 neighbors on my very same street that have not been able to sell their properties, and it's been 6 months or more. Both have taken their properties off the market to do some cleaning and so forth on the inside. Both of my neighbors have actually went ahead and moved, and they aren't even in the home because they can't sell it, and they've
For
had to move
more or
forward.
less than the assessed value since you've got that information?
Pardon?
Their
homes are
trying to sell those
value
for
less.
less than the assessed value?
They are, yes, for less than my assessed value. One home, one of the homes.
Less than the assessed value of those homes?
As far as their homes, I think, I don't want to get my neighbors in trouble. I'm not here to speak on behalf of my neighbors for you to
especially, I was
assess
like
them
quite a
more.
bit over our assessed value, so.
But one of them is much larger than my home as well. I mean, it is definitely a newer home. It has more square footage. It has upgrades that my home does not.
Right, so do you feel though that your home is worth less than you paid for it?
I do, and if you can see
That's all I wanted to
2
ask.
valuations from home.com and home valuation, I have evidence to support the fact that, yes, market values have dropped in the past few years since I purchased my home originally.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna touch on process, because maybe that'll help to
Sure.
clarify some of this. Ed touched on our cyclical review process. The cyclical review is our reassessment cycle, completed every 4 years, such as every parcel in the county being reviewed for accuracy. On the front end. The second side of that is we're required to go through a sales ratio analysis annually. Okay, this is a required step that we have to go through. That sales ratio analysis is comparing the properties that have sold in the previous year, ideally, with the valuations on those same homes. When those valuations and those sales prices don't line up in an appropriate way, generally, we're looking for a median assessment level between 90 and 110%. And then it's not even generally, that's by statute. Then we're required to adjust up or down to make sure our values fit into those ranges. So as we've seen increased sales over the past handful of years, I mean, yours included at the reported, that part card, 527,000, I think is what I saw on the card. I'm not looking directly at it. We're seeing things selling for more. And obviously with the sales history on this property, we can see that in 2019, a reported sale at 380,000, 2019 again, we see 431. And then in 2023, we see $527,000. What's the main difference there? Obviously there was some condition issues with the property when you purchased it, but we're still seeing, nearly $100,000 in market value increase over that 4-year period from the previous sale. That's part of what's being reflected here through the valuation change is the market condition changes trying to reflect the market value in use of the property. While your homes.com information certainly does indicate a value of $524,000, the additional information right to the right of that also says, 593, 663, 558. There is some variability there. And these are all using automated valuation models, taking into consideration less of the detail of the home and more of the known facts. What is the square footage? What is the location? What else is sold around it? So those are all, coming together, and we do review similar information to this. It's just that is the actual sales events are what drives that annual valuation adjustment. As far as that goes. Now, so the question of the day is, what is the market value in use of this property as of January 1st, 2025? We have seen values continue to increase. We have seen sale prices continue to be higher. Just last month, we saw the first $500,000 sale in the city of Plymouth occur. Something that I wouldn't have thought was going to be even possible as early as 5 years ago, as early as 2 years ago. So we're still seeing values increase. We're still seeing sale prices increase. I think coming back to Ed's question, the real determinant there is when we're looking at those properties that are up for sale, how are those comparing with our current valuations? Are those sales going to be higher than our current valuations? Is it indicating that we're not valuing the properties high enough? Are they going to be lower than our valuations and indicate that our values are too high? Until they sell, that's a contested data point. And as far as just the grading schedule takes into account a number of factors. It takes into account the components of a home. Are those better than average quality components, or are those lesser than? Design quality is a factor in there. Location does have some part in that. It is really a subjective comparison between the subject property and the other homes in the area to identify the level of quality between the subject and the comparables. So while we do have a guideline that kind of points out some key factors, another section of that guideline, which I didn't print today, I didn't know we were going to get into that, does reference the comparative nature of the quality grade that gets assigned and how it's meant to adjust the valuation of the subject property in relationship to the other homes in that particular neighborhood. Essentially stating that, if a home is nicer, which is a really terrible term, but if it is a better quality construction, it has better components, it would likely sell for more and should have a higher valuation. And so that's where we're coming in today at our total value of $581,400. That's all I've got.
Thank you.
Am I able to ask questions?
Just 1 minute. Any questions, Angie, for either Ms. Good or the county?
Excuse me, no. No, I don't think so.
You have questions?
I do.
Okay,
I'm curious how many other properties in the county of Marshall County, are assessed like 20% higher in 1 year when it shows, and I pulled that information for you from, I think it was on the third page where the county-wide average increase was 7%. Are there more homes than mine that have been assessed 20% in 1 year and then 30% when you look at the past 2 years on a property that just was purchased 2 years ago? So you mentioned like when a home sells and that you look at what a home sells for. I'm not really understanding why in 2 years, I have jumped 30% and am over $100,000 to $300,000 more than every other neighbor on my street.
In 2023, when you purchased it for 527,000, that was almost $70,000 over our assessment as of January 1st, 2023. So this is what happens over time is we are comparing those numbers with the numbers that have sold, and that either increases or decreases. In a market since 2019, even on this own property where you can see that the great parameter of 2019 to 2023, what happened to that house that changed it $90,000 greatly? Just the market, it wasn't that house didn't change that much. It looked just like it did in that 4-year period, but the market had changed. So that's what we did see, especially on the lakes. And like I said, I know the lakes well. Around the 2019 period, we just had an increase out there on what we call the Twin Lakes area. And then we didn't see those sales sell during COVID times because those were the lowest, cheapest lakes to live on. So we didn't see a whole lot of movement there. We did at Lake of the Woods. So we saw a very substantial increase there. Then that kind of followed the Coons Lake. Then we kind of saw that on Pretty Lake and then Lake Max. So it's kind of back around to those Twin Lakes again of seeing them sell and seeing the movement. So that just kind of all played together at that time. So yes, but very much so in other neighborhoods and areas, we have 20 to 30% increases because of this very same thing. We didn't have sales and then all of a sudden we had several to show, hey, the market does need to move.
But I didn't repurchase my house in 2024. So when I purchased it in 2023, you already jumped me from, sorry, I'm looking at the.
Right. And that was based on other sales and averages that moved it to that time. Also cost table increases for 2025.
But I guess what my point being, I don't understand why when I purchased it in 2023, you moved me from $453,800 to $489,300, which again, in my report, I showed that I was already 40,000 above the neighbors on my street at that point. I didn't repurchase my house in 2024. So then I was reassessed again in 2025. Really, I'm not sure what you base that assessment on.
We
But I
reassess each property every year. That's not
But
different.
again, I jumped 20% when I was already 40,000 above my neighbors in 2024. And there was no market, you didn't really have market data at that point because my house didn't sell in 2024, it sold in 2023, which to your point, you're saying that meant I jumped in 2023 to 2024. I don't understand why I jumped again from 2024 to 2025, and it was a 20% jump when I'm already in 2024 higher than my neighbors at that point from my 2024 assessed value to their 2025 assessed value. So I'm even comparing my 2024 value to a year later on all of my neighbors, and I'm still 40,000 above.
And so a sale does not trigger a reassessment of a property. It does not. We are trying to identify the market value in use using mass appraisal techniques. And so each year as we go through and we do that market study, if we observe that markets have changed, whether the specific property was sold or has been owned by the same family member for the last 50 years, doesn't indicate if the value should or should not move. The market conditions are what indicate that. So in 2024, we obviously had some sales information and we did see some value change arise from that sales information that was available at that point in time. And that's going to account for a part of the change from the 453 to the $489,000. Now, $489,000 is still indicated to be undervalued based on your purchase price from 2023.
But if you look at the comps and, you know, your comps were not reflective of what you're telling me about sale prices, all of the homes, and I did have that in the report as well, showing that your comps were homes with much smaller square footage as mine that increased your assessment value. When I pulled 15 more comps in the county that were more recent in 2024, a lot of them sold in 2024. That wasn't the case. I also had some that sold in 2025. All of the dates on my comps that are labeled, you know, the first one was the comp I agreed on from your assessment report, but comps 2 through 15, I have underlined all of the assessed values, what they sold on, the dates, most sold in 2024 to 2025, and does not reflect at all even close to my my assessed value for 2025. All of them came in much lower than what I'm assessed at. So I would argue that that the market is not reflective of what you're telling me. Perhaps I paid too much for it in 2023. You know, and shame on me if I did pay too much for it in 2023, but I don't think that that really justifies my assessed value being $100,000 to $300,000 above my neighbor, because I paid perhaps too much in 2023.
And you are always welcome to come in. We can compare a neighbor. We can pull.
I did.
If you want to. I mean, we can
You did
compare the
do
best
that.
facts of it here and talk about it.
All of the assessment records.
But I will
also
say,
need
I
to-
will say that we're looking at a little bit more than a 9% increase since your purchase in 2023 for a superior home that's on the lake. And that doesn't sound inaccurate to me personally. I know that you don't agree with that, but.
All of my
I'm with-
neighbors are on the lake that I pulled that are the page labeled 2024 property valuation comparison homes on Menominee Drive. They're all on my street. Like all of those properties sit next to me on the lake.
Did you look at the one on 12th Road that just had sold for $500,000?
The one on
West side?
12th Road was completely remodeled. I know that was in your assessment report. And I think I think it sold after maybe your email. However, that home was completely remodeled. I know the owner. And you can pull it up on Zillow, which you probably have. You can see that he remodeled everything on the interior of the home in the time that he lived there.
Would you consider that home superior or inferior to
I
yours?
would say it is superior because it's remodeled. He had all, you know, I have a 20-year-old roof. I have a 30-year-old water heater. I have cracks in my sidewalk. I have pests in my home. I would say yes, that it is superior, because if you look, he's got new flooring, he's got newer appliances, he's got newer fixtures in his home, and it's much more.
And we do have a newer effective year on that home. So we're saying that is effectively newer. However, we're saying it's not to the same quality as of yours.
It's not to the same quality
doesn't
of
look
mine,
like that,
correct?
yes.
It is, I think it is superior interiorly, yes.
So I just have one. So when you purchased in March of 23, was there an appraisal completed on the property?
I would have to look at my records to recall whether or not I had.
You have a mortgage on it.
I do have a mortgage on it.
Then I would assume it would have had an appraisal ordered by at least the bank.
That was also coming out of COVID, and I guess I don't know the market here in COVID. You mentioned it was less. Everywhere else in the state of Indiana, it was much higher at the time. And then coming off the tail end, when I purchased it, I think homes reflected that. I don't see that reflected in today's market. I think, and you can see the supporting data for Redfin shows that there is a 21% drop. And that is Redfin's report, that isn't something I've just said. I do have evidence.
Right, and part of that
showing
data
decline
is
in the
from
market.
January 1st to now. I mean, that percentage they're showing, because we are targeting January 1st of each year.
I mean, it shows like the plot graph includes 2024. And you can see when I purchased it here in 2023, it spiked. And then it came down and has come down with a little bit of a spike in 2025. I don't know if that was the summer or not, but then it dropped again. So, but again, I am saying that when I pulled 15 comps and included one comp of yours that I found reasonable, I am assessed way lower than my neighbors. Properties are selling that are comparable to mine are selling much less than what I purchased in 2023 that are inferior homes, newer homes in my comps. And then, you know, I have done a lot of work to support my point that I am assessed way higher than most of Marshall County that I have taken note of
And you
here,
have done a lot of work.
including 16 comps and all of my neighbors on Menominee Drive, which are not in my comps. But I have shown you what their assessed values are. I feel as though I am assessed higher than really the majority of Marshall County. I am a single woman. I do work 2 jobs. I'm not asking for pity, but I'm saying that there is equity that should be taken into consideration. There is fairness that should be taken into consideration. And just because I painted my exterior, I shouldn't be targeted for painting my exterior when I have pest issues, damage to my siding that was noted in my inspection report that needed to be repaired.
Mhm.
Okay, we're gonna wrap this up.
Okay.
I think everybody has expressed their views. I appreciate the report and the time that you took to give this to us. That gives us a lot of additional information. If there's nothing further, these proceedings are concluded. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
in.
on.
This is an administrative hearing being held on November 18th, 2025 in Marshall County. This hearing is being recorded. This hearing is being conducted pursuant to the applicable laws as stated in IC 6-1.1. We have one appeal before the board. The appeal number is 500142504000003 for parcel number 502161046050000014 for the property located at 624 Forest Place in Culver. The assessment year under appeal is 2025. Does everyone present agree the year under appeal is as stated?
Yes.
Thank you. My name's Phil Olinger. I'm a member of the Marshall County PTABAOA Board. This lady is a member and she is,
Angie Snyder.
thank you, the petitioner, William Molyneux with Devolved Property Tax Services, who is representing Plaza Partners, is not present at the hearing. He was sent a hearing notice to appear this date at 11 a.m. and is now 11:17 a.m. I will ask the PTABAOA secretary if the petitioner called and asked for the hearing to be rescheduled.
No, he did not.
Was the hearing notice returned as undeliverable?
No, it was not.
We will move forward with this appeal in his absence then. Will the gentleman representing the county assessor's office please state your name for the record?
Peter Paul?
Will you please raise your right hand to be sworn? You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. Okay, the total parcel assessment being appealed is $130,000. The petitioner contends the assessment is better represented at $118,200. County, do you have any testimony or evidence you would like to give the board regarding this appeal?
Yes, well, and then to start, the original valuation, the 1/1/25 valuation originally determined was 216,000. That was the originally proposed value.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, just to get
Thank
that
you.
clarification. This property has had a number of appeals over the past few years. Seems like an annual appeal process with this rep with this property. We did have an IBTR hearing scheduled for this past May. Prior to that IBTR hearing in May, we did reach an agreement. I did include a copy of the settlement agreement, where we agreed that the value would be $130,000 for the January 1st, 2024 valuation date. With the current appeal, we see where they are requesting a very low value, or I guess it's 87,800 plus 30,400 would be 118,000 or
118,200.
118,200. We hadn't seen any of the value workup from their income submissions that they usually make. I did include a copy of the one that was submitted last year. Certainly their initial valuation that they were requesting was $10,200, which is kind of unreasonable in my opinion for a 20 unit section 515 apartment complex. So again, through the settlement process, we did reach a settlement of $130,000. That value had been proposed to the taxpayer to carry that forward from the previous settlement, but we had not heard back from them, and we also had not received any new income workups for the 2025 valuation. So at this point in time, we're requesting that the value be reduced to the $130,000 as was agreed during our settlement of the IBTR hearing for 2024. Makes sense.
It does make sense. So the petitioner agreed to the 130,000 for the 2024 IBTR.
Yes.
And you were going to carry that forward, and he did not agree?
From the time when we settled the appeal, we didn't settle this, the hearing was, the IBTR hearing was in May of this year. Prior to that hearing, we reached that settlement, but
Okay.
Form 11s had already been issued at the higher value. So
Okay,
as the Form 11s had already been issued and with the new state requirements for reporting those assessed values, 216 was the assessment of record. In light of our recent settlement, it was originally proposed to settle this year's value at the same one we did for the previous year, but I never heard back
Okay.
on
thank you.
a firm answer on if we would
Okay.
do that or not.
So, so you still propose the 130,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Angie, any questions?
No questions.
I have nothing. Anything else, Pete?
No, that should be it for me.
All right. If there's nothing, further, these proceedings are concluded. Next. Am I good? This is an administrative hearing being held on November 18th, 2025 in Marshall County. This hearing is being recorded. This hearing is being conducted pursuant to the applicable laws as stated in IC 6-1.1. We have one appeal before the board. The appeal number is 50014-2504-0007 for parcel number 50211630000014 for the property located at 660 Forest Place in Culver. The assessment here under appeal is 2025. Does everyone present agree the year under appeal is as stated?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Phil Olinger. I'm a member of the Marshall County PTABAOA Board. This lady is a member of the board and she is,
Angie Snyder.
thank you, the petitioner, Bill Molyneux with DeWald Property Tax Services, representing Plaza Partners, is not present at the hearing. He was sent a hearing notice to appear this date at 11 a.m. It is now 11:25 a.m. I will ask the PTABAOA secretary if Mr. Molyneux contacted the assessor's office and asked for the hearing to be rescheduled.
He did not.
Was the hearing notice returned as undeliverable?
It was not.
Thank you. We will move forward with this hearing in the absence of the petitioner. Will the gentleman representing the county assessor's office please state your name for the record?
Peter Paul.
Will you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. The total assessed value being appealed is, I think I have it right this time, $519,000. And the petitioner contends that the assessed value is better represented at, surely not, 83,300. Okay. So, county, do you have any testimony or evidence you'd like to give the board regarding this appeal?
Yeah. So there are a couple of unique items going on with this appeal. The first being that the original appeal was received by our office on July 14th, which is essentially a month beyond the appeal filing due date of, I think it was June 15th this year. I think that fell on a weekday. Anyway, statutorily, it's a June 15th if we have assessment notices out by May 1st, which I can certify that we did. So we did not receive the appeal until July 14th. Initially, we sent a Form 138 notice of defect, which I believe is in your packet, to alert them that, hey, this is a defective petition. From there, the petitioner wanted a Form 115 issued so they could proceed on to the state, but we did not want to deprive them of their opportunity to work through the entirety of the process. So we're here today. First and foremost, we believe this appeal to be be defective due to its late filing nature. The petitioner did submit a letter and an affidavit and an IBTR reference indicating that if they could certify that they had sent the filing timely, that would be good enough to classify it as timely. We had received other appeals that were filed timely from this entity. It was this one that was not, although Mr. Molyneux, I believe, is the one who signed the affidavit, stated, the steps he took in which to file it, the post office box he went to, what day it was, referencing some of those things. The bottom line is that the original filing that he claims to have sent prior to the due date has never been received. It wasn't one of those situations where we received the filing, 2 weeks late and the postmark was on there. It has never been received to this date. So, our contention is that original filing, it is just as likely that he misaddressed the envelope and sent that to another county. It was not received here in this county though, until they sent the copy on July 14th that they claimed was submitted prior to the due date. So there is that contention. Let's see, sorry, I'm around on my paper. Yeah, so his statement here is that on June 15th, 2025, he put the 130 in a single envelope and addressed to the Marshall County Assessor. Again, that has just never been received by our office. So we find that this appeal is defective. Secondly, on the valuation portion of it, the current value was arrived at through working with a different representative for this taxpayer in the previous year. They had appealed the property and they had submitted their income and expense workups that we had developed a revised valuation off of and offered that as settlement for the 2024 value. That same value was applied for the 2025 year. Looking into what the income potential is of this older adult Section 515 housing development could be worth. Of note, on the property record card, we can also see that, in 2022, what looks like a sale, that was not a sale. That was a refinance of the property to do some improvements to the property, to rehabilitate it and make it back to really what it should be. That purchase price, although they've never shared the appraisal with us, my understanding of those USDA appraisal or financings is that they all do get appraisals. And I find it a little strange that the USDA would authorize an $861,000 refinance on a property that appraised for $83,000. So in our findings, we worked through the income information in the previous year. We have the same value as the previous year. And even then looking at the information that was submitted from the previous year appeal to the income workup submitted with this year's appeal, we find some discrepancies between those two statements that lead us to believe there's some flaws in the calculation. And first and foremost, we would like the board to find that the petition was defective and solidify that finding. And then furthermore, I would issue no further change if that is not an agreeable stance.
Thank you. Angie, any questions for Pete?
No questions.
Any concluding remarks, Pete, or have you addressed everything?
I think that covered it all.
Okay. If there's nothing further, these proceedings are concluded.